What's up? What's up? What's up? It's your man, Coach Block, and I am here with
your girl So Fab. Hey, y'all. And we officially have
Dr. Janze. Hey.
It is Embodi Balance Wednesday. And as you guys know, we have Dr. Janze in the building, and we are going to talk about total health, wellness, weight loss, all of that. So this month, we are focusing on weight loss.
Yes.
And we're going to start talking about little components that we can do to just kind of fix ourselves, get ourselves together. Yep. It's a brand new year. It's time for us to really be serious about those resolutions and not focus so much on, I want to lose this amount, but I want to be and feel better.
Yep. You want to be healthy.
Yes, exactly.
So that's the goal for 2025. We're thriving.
Hello, and good evening. So you have a guest.
Yes.
And I'll let you do the honor.
Yes, absolutely. So I am so excited. So part of my weight loss program, nutrition is very important. And so I am so happy to have Ashley here with us. She is a nutritionist. She's also a personal trainer. And she and I have talked about my weight loss program and things that I'm looking at and what I'm interested in doing. And so a big piece of weight loss is, of course, what we're eating. And so it's important to know and learn about nutrition. So I'm excited to welcome Ashley. She is going to join us. Hi, Ashley.
Hey,
and
everyone.
She's going to introduce herself and then talk to us a little bit about nutrition. Welcome.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited and a little nervous because
it's fun. It's fun.
But it's great to be on the podcast tonight. My name is Ashley Sponsky. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm a certified personal trainer and a lifestyle coach. And I own a private practice called Fueled and Fit. And I've owned that since 2019. So right before COVID hit, I actually opened up my doors.
Awesome.
So yeah, I love what I do. I love working with all kinds of clients with different goals and different needs, but primarily I work with a lot of weight loss clients or those who have a goal of losing weight or maintaining their weight loss.
That's amazing. And Ashley, first of all, don't be nervous. You will learn to realize that we're just family. So we are going to make this as conversational as possible and know that we're coming to you because you're the expert.
Right.
So this, and we're just wanting to ask questions to gain clarity, and then really just make sure that we're doing the right things when it comes to the foods that we're picking up. Because so many people think that, sugar-free or fat-free or, vegan options, that those are sometimes the best way to go, but not really learning like what is best for your body. So Dr. Janze, did you want to kick it off or you want us to kick it off?
Yeah. So what I would like to start with is just talking about, and I sent you some information as far as what a balanced diet looks like. So we can talk a little bit about that because I think people miss the big piece of being on a weight loss program. Eating is the big piece. Yes, we do have options to help with the weight loss, but the goal is you're eating properly so that long term you're able to maintain.
Yes, exactly. So the true key is balance. A lot of fad diets out there are very unbalanced. They're either too high in fat, too high in protein, too little carbs. So it's kind of simple. If you think about how you want to structure a balanced diet, you want to make sure that you're spreading out your three main macronutrients evenly on your plate. Or making sure that you're getting multiple food groups in per meal and snack. So we have three main macronutrients. Those are proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And we want to make sure that we are getting those, a bit of those in every single meal and snack that we consume. So for instance, if we were doing keto or Atkins or low carb or any of the various different detoxes and fad diets we can get into, they're not balanced in that. We're overdoing it in one macronutrient and missing on a lot of what are called micronutrients, which are all the little small intricate nutrients that we need to keep our bodies healthy as well. So we risk becoming malnourished, or we risk becoming deficient in a certain micronutrient if we don't have these three balanced on our plate.
And it's good that you broke that down for us because Method Man, a lot of people were in awe of his transformation, in his latter 50s, and the fact that he got serious about his health, the fact that he's working out consistently, but he always kept telling people it's about the macros, the macros, the macros. And I don't think we really had a clear understanding of what that meant, because it's not something that we're taught. It's not something that's really discussed when you go in to, talk to a professional. So most people were kind of, I guess, they weren't quite clear on what that actually meant. So essentially, it's just making sure that you are eating that balanced diet of having the fats, having the carbs, and having the protein in each of your eating settings.
Yes, absolutely. And each macronutrient has different roles in the body. So it's important to get all three in. And I know certain nutrients, like carbohydrates, for instance, get a very bad reputation. But there are some very beneficial aspects of carbohydrates, and we don't want to cut our carbohydrates too low. But we also don't want to overdo it either. Complications can happen either way.
Awesome.
Yeah. And again, I'm glad you did explain that, because even with me, so for me, yes, I'm a nurse practitioner, but I know my lane. I know my stuff. Nutrition is you need a nutritionist in your life to really help you bring that balance, to help with that weight loss. So thank you for explaining that. So I myself have, on my several weight loss journeys, have focused a lot on portion control. Can you talk a little bit about that, why it's important, how, what that balance look like on a plate for someone who just may not quite understand?
Yeah, sure. So there are many benefits to portion control. I think it is super important to take into consideration when someone's trying to lose weight or maintain weight, because, think of all of the mindless munching that can happen when we're sitting down watching our favorite shows, or we go to the movies. Screen time can definitely attribute to a lot of our, overeating. But it's important to think about, because portion control can help us lose weight. It can help us balance our blood sugars, balance our hormone status. So there's many reasons why we would want to consider portion control. Usually what I think of, or the easiest concept to think of when it comes to portion control, is what's called the plate method. And the USDA actually came out with a new infographic or structure to kind of look at when it comes to balancing our plate. And it used to be the food guide pyramid back in like the 80s and the 90s. And that really wasn't applicable to, what we're putting on our plates on a daily basis. So the new plate method is basically breaking your plate into three parts. So we want half of our plate to be fruits and vegetables. So anything colorful, produce oriented. And then a quarter of our plate have protein, and a quarter of our plate have starch or carbohydrate on it. So, to give an example of that, that would be a quarter plate of baked chicken with a quarter plate of brown rice and half of a plate of a garden salad, or green beans and broccoli, something like that. It could be very simple, but having that structure is going to give us the portions we need, the macronutrients in the right amount, and we're not overdoing the calories.
And can you also explain about hormones? Because I think people forget, as you get older, hormones do play a part, and how you might need to change things in your diet based off of your hormones.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I could probably talk all day about it, and have a whole nother podcast episode on hormones. But as we age, our hormones do change, whether we're male or female. Our testosterone and estrogen levels will change. Our cortisol levels change dependent on how stressed out we might be, or the amount of sleep that we're receiving on a regular basis. So all of these things can fluctuate, and if we're not eating regularly throughout the day, these levels can become very imbalanced. So for instance, if we are fasting in the morning and we're only drinking coffee, which I know I can be guilty of doing from time to time. It's very common practice, and that will spike our cortisol in the morning. But if we have a protein-rich breakfast in the morning with our coffee, it will help stabilize our cortisol levels and stabilize our blood sugars, which lead to a healthier balance of hormones throughout the remainder of our day.
Interesting.
So I have a question. When I had the opportunity to work on a cardiac floor, and they used to always say heart healthy meals to those that have like stents, or they come in and they have blockage and they get everything fixed, and we'll eat a heart healthy meal. And a lot of people would just look at the doctor like, all right, whatever. what consists of a heart healthy meal? Or for somebody who does have, suffers from heart disease or something like that, and they don't know what to specifically eat, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're absolutely right. When you go to the hospital and they give you a heart healthy diet, it could be very generalized. Like they don't really explain that. But there's two things I take into consideration with a heart healthy meal. The first is the quality of your fats. So we have several different types of fat in the diet. But we primarily have unsaturated fats and saturated fats. So a heart healthy meal would consist of more unsaturated fats. So think of olive oil, think of nuts and seeds, flaxseed, avocado oil, things of that nature, versus butter, cream cheese, gravies. Those are all your saturated fats that tend to essentially clog arteries over a long period of time. So the quality of fat is going to be the primary thing in a heart healthy diet. And the other thing to consider is your salt intake. So if you are consuming a lot of excess sodium in foods, that could constrict your blood vessels and affect your heart. So it's going to raise your blood pressure, essentially. So low sodium is what we're looking for as well.
And some of those too are on fluid restrictions too, so you just have to be cautious.
True.
So the sodium is definitely important because fluid shifts. But in speaking of like fasting, so intermittent fasting is a pretty popular topic. I've tried it, didn't quite work well for me, but I've heard people that it worked very well for. What's your thoughts on intermittent fasting? Because or 3 meals, 6 small meals a day, your 3 regular meals, and then your snacks, healthy snacks. But then, the intermittent fasting that a lot of people are doing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's very popular, very trendy. I get asked this question quite often. And I don't really have a stance, like a very strong stance one way or another, but I would say it's definitely more of a case by case basis. So for some, it might work great, and for others, it doesn't. But when you really break it down, intermittent fasting is just a way to restrict your calorie intake, right? So if you're only eating between the hours of 11 and 7 or 12 and 8, you're taking out a lot of time that you might be mindlessly munching. So I know most people are in front of a television at night, right? And if you're telling yourself you can't eat after 8 o'clock, then you're restricting a lot of those calories that you might be intaking otherwise. So in that sort of case, it would work. But you also want to make sure that you're getting enough calories within that window of time. So you don't want to fast necessarily throughout the whole day. You want to make sure you're getting enough calories within that 8-hour window.
And
so that's kind of a misconception.
One of the things that I think we all agreed, even when, Ms. Verna was here, is that dieting and healthy lifestyle, sometimes it can get stressful, because you're trying to make sure that you're eating enough, but then not eating too much, that you're making sure that your meals are balanced, that they're the proper sort of meals, that you're not, like you said, the, fats that are good fats and the bad fats, where you're just like, I can see why some people fall off the wagon. So what are some, words of encouragement or some suggestions that you can kind of help people when they're getting to the point where it's like, look, I'm stressed out. This is just way too much.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I think social media has definitely contributed to this diet culture as well, because there's just so much information out there, so much misinformation. And I think my biggest recommendation is to try and keep it as simple as possible. There's no need to overcomplicate things. There's no need to go too hard, too fast. Really create what's called SMART goals. SMART is measurable, attainable, realistic goals. So instead of saying I'm going to lose 100 pounds, say I'm going to lose 2 pounds a week for the next month and see how that goes. By breaking it down into much smaller goals, that's not to say you can't lose 100 pounds. That would, if you need to, and that's a goal, that's great. But, you overwhelm yourself by creating very lofty goals. And then my other suggestion is make sure you have experts in place to help you with, good information, quality information, research-based advice, not just fad diet culture advice. Talk to a dietitian, talk to a nurse practitioner, hire a personal trainer, have these people in place to guide you in the right direction versus getting overwhelmed with a lot of basically nonsense on social media.
And that's the thing I stress too with people, like start with small goals, because big goals can be overwhelming, and that's just not in diets, just anything in life. Start small and work towards that one goal. So for me, 10 pounds, let's work towards the 10 pounds first. And then, we reach that goal. Let's move to the next goal. And so also, we talk a lot, I hear a lot about the calorie deficit, especially people doing the injections. What are your thoughts about that? And the other question too, speaking of calories, how does one know how many calories to intake? Because, we might be thinking we're eating enough and we're eating way too much or not enough.
Right. Yeah. And that's a great question. And that's a loaded question. There's a lot to talk about there. I'll start with how many calories you need in a day. So that is going to vary per individual. I personally use a nutrition-based equation. I know some programs like MyFitnessPal use other equations that are, roughly in the same, space. But I have something on like a database I use with this equation that I calculate calorie needs for people. And that is based off of your gender, your weight, your height, your age, and your activity level. So these are all just basic numbers that I input into my database, and it gives me the lowest number, which is your resting metabolic rate. And that's the bare minimum number of calories that your body needs a day to function. So when it comes to a calorie deficit, we don't want to go under this number. And a lot of times people are. So that's damaging their metabolism. They're not fueling properly. They might be stagnant as far as their weight loss goes. They might be plateauing. So I always make sure that someone is eating above their metabolic needs. And then from there, we determine how active the person is. And then we come up with their maintenance calories, because exercise is going to play a role into, maintaining your weight. And if they want to lose weight, then we find what I call a sweet spot in between the metabolic rate and your maintenance calories. We want to, take a little bit of the edge off of your maintenance calories so that you can start to see a change over time with your weight status. And up to 2 pounds a week is usually what I recommend, and kind of toy around with those numbers to see what would work best for that person.
Awesome. So I have another question, and Ken and I were actually joking about it before we got on air. But substitutions, realistic substitutions, because sometimes people will say things like, "Oh, I know you're craving boneless wings. Well, go get that cauliflower." Okay, but I don't like cauliflower, so that's not a realistic substitution for me, And then you have people like the two of us, where we have a sugar addiction. Mine is more so like pastries, where he's kind of like more candy. But there are a lot of people out here who are addicted to sugar. Huh?
Telling now you telling my business.
All your business.
Now, didn't we just turn the table?
Because everyone has their different addictions, you know, whereas like for me, candy is like, I can go without it, but a pastry or a cookie, that's where, you know, I'm like, I'm giving in. So what are some realistic substitutions that people can have where they still feel satisfied, but they're not cheating?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And there's so many options out there now in the food industry that you know, higher protein options, higher fiber options, lower sugar options. And you're right in the sense of, I personally don't recommend, like, if a person loves pastries and sweets and cookies, you know, an apple is not going to do anything. And from a scientific basis, there are two different types of sugars. So cookies and candy have what's called glucose, which is the most simplest form of sugar, which is why it's so addicting. We eat it and it like rushes into our bloodstream and we get that high, right? That high blood sugar response. But fruit has fructose. That's fruit sugar. So it's not going to taste the same. It's not going to feel the same. It's not going to digest the same. So it's just simply not a great suggestion as a substitution, in my opinion. My first suggestion for this is always, if you feel like you can control the portion size of what you enjoy, there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of what you enjoy. So if you think you can have a cookie and leave it at a cookie, you're not cheating. You're not going to ruin anything.
No.
Feel out of control. Like we eat, you know, a whole sleeve of Oreos, or
talk to me. Talk to me.
He needs the apple.
Now, how am I supposed to just eat one cookie? Now that ain't even that ain't gonna happen.
That's part of the addiction, right? So a lot of times we can't feel like we could just stick to one cookie. So you know, in cases where the portion control is not necessarily something we could deal with in a healthy manner, then maybe finding an alternative. So I'll give you an example. Like I'm a big ice cream fanatic. That's my favorite. Yeah. Have you guys ever heard of the brand Yasso or seen it in stores?
Yes. Yes.
So it's a Greek yogurt bar. It's based out of Greek yogurt, but they have different flavors like chocolate chip cookie dough or chocolate fudge or salted caramel. Some are like even chocolate dipped. But they have higher protein and lower sugar found in their products. So you can still enjoy a sweet treat that tastes like you're eating an ice cream bar, but it's like 100 calories, 120 calories. And it's portion controlled. You can eat it, you enjoy it, you don't feel guilty, you're satisfied. Boom, you can move on with your life. Right. It's like a perfect example of what I would substitute in that case.
Okay, interesting. I'll have to check those out.
Yeah, I might like that.
We actually have them.
Oh, do you?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yara eats them. My daughter, because my fiance is not big on sugary things until, you know, special
it comes
times.
Into play.
Yeah. But for the most part, she gets the little ice cream bars, and I guess like there's birthday cake flavor. There's all types of flavors. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not allowed to touch them because I'll go through the whole box. But they are very good though.
I'll have to try those.
Yeah.
Pink box.
I'll put him on your plan. Ashley. He needs an apple.
I had 2 today. Didn't work.
But
I was still shaking like I need a cookie, baby.
But to your point, Ashley, I never thought about that, to where, like you said, the fruit and the candy are 2 different sugars. So it's not going to satisfy it because I'm looking for this, but I'm getting this. And then after I eat this, it's like, no, I still want this. But who would know? Because like you said, typically people are like, oh, well, if you're wanting something sweet, then get an apple and peanut butter. Girl, that ain't gonna work. I still want my cookie.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you end up eating the apple and peanut butter and the cookie, you know. Not solving anything.
Yes. So in the talk about fruit and snacking, what are some healthy snacks that people can eat that are good for you, but still
fun.
Yeah. And like some of those things that people can, I always encourage like boiled eggs. Like because they fill you up. They do. So people that just mindless snacking, mindless eating, what are some tips that will help them?
Yeah. And I think snacking sometimes could get a bad rap because, we think of snacking in the worst way, like sugary foods or calorie laden foods or late night snacking. And it doesn't necessarily need to be that way, because if we use snacks in a healthy manner and fuel throughout the day, we're not going to feel the need to necessarily overdo it with unhealthy snacks later on in the evening. So my biggest recommendation is when you're choosing a snack, you want to combine a carb and a protein together. So going back to those basic snackers, you're absolutely right. Like boiled egg would be a great source of protein. Well, protein makes us feel fuller throughout the day. But it doesn't provide us with the energy we need. And that's where the carbohydrate comes in. Carbohydrates provide our body with immediate source of energy. So we want to combine the two together so that we're feeling full and we feel energized, and we can go about another 3 to 4 hours without eating. So going back to the apple and peanut butter example, your apple would be your carbohydrate, your peanut butter would be your protein and fat source, and you combine those together, and that would be an ideal snack. Or you could do string cheese and crackers. Your string cheese would be your protein and your crackers would be your carb, and you're combining those together. So they could be as healthy as you want them to be, or if you want a little, sweet treat, I'm sure you could sprinkle in some, chocolate chips into your yogurt or your Greek yogurt or something like that to get a little sweet in there. But you can come up with all kinds of combinations. You just want that protein carb combo.
And so I have a question, because we did talk about stress, and this question is for both you, Dr. Janze, and also you, Miss Ashley, that when you guys, or is it a point sometimes where you may see that the stressors or even maybe something psychologically is going into the poor habits of eating, where it may be out of the realm of you saying like, okay, nutrition, you need a nutritionist or a dietitian. You actually might need a therapist first, and then let's pair that with the nutritionist, because your emotional eating, you know what I mean? Like this is something that's another trigger besides just, you saying I'm hungry.
Right.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you want me to go first, Dr. Janze, but
yeah, go ahead.
There's definitely like unrelated reasons why we can be, consuming certain things or binging on foods or even restricting certain foods. It could be stress responses. It could be trauma. It could be just purely habitual, or like things that you grew up with in your family. Like if
right.
you guys always had certain foods in the house, or you always shared a certain snack with your sibling or your mom or something like that, those.
We're like, uh-oh. There's always a cookie and some candy in the house somewhere.
Yeah. So there's a lot more that goes into it other than, are you just truly hungry or are you truly full? I mean, that's something to consider for sure. But there's plenty of instances where I've worked with clients who I've also suggested working alongside a therapist too, and I check in with them as well to kind of see progress, because there's some things that I'm just not qualified to tap into. So I always defer out to the therapist.
And see, that's why I asked, because I know a lot of people, when I'm emotional about something, I want to eat this. And it doesn't make a difference what anybody says. Yeah, I just want that level of comfort. But then now in both of y'all professions, how do you address it where it's like, you might need to talk to somebody,
Yeah. And then a lot of times, because weight loss, it is a mental, but I think it's important too for therapy, just because you're on this weight loss journey, you have a lot of, and it's a mental thing. Like you have to learn to unpack all those things to get to where you want to be, coupled with, dietary, nutritionist, maybe some help for me, so it's a big picture than just, I'm going to just lose weight, because once you're off the program or you're doing things different, you've gotten to your weight loss goal, you want to maintain it. And so, and if you're not your mindset isn't changed to these new habits, new way of thinking, new way of eating for life, not that you got to eat to live, that thought. So I think it all boils down to it's a big picture, and they all come together to work for the good of the person. And then you think about the TV show, My 600-Pound Life. A lot of those are issues that happened in their childhood, and emotional eating has been their go-to, and that's their comfort. And so when you're eating, I don't want to eat an apple when I'm feeling bad. I want to eat that big bowl of ice cream.
Right.
The good kind.
Yeah.
And to your point too, what I think is good in part with a maintenance program is making sure that you have someone to do the check-ins, because you may be doing extremely well, then it'll take a life circumstance that will just throw you completely off, and then now you're trying to figure out, how do I go back? Then you're dealing with the guilt of how could I let myself get like this? Yes, and
so
the stress.
So then that just opens the door for lots of other health issues, hypertension. So it's a lot that goes into losing weight, and that's why it's so stressful for a lot of people. It's stressful to try to figure out what I'm eating next week, and that's why meal prepping is really key and essential, can really be a big benefit, because it cuts down on all that unhealthy eating. And then in the concept of, we talk about home, how we grew up and how we eat. Ashley, can you talk a little bit about what are some healthier ways to cook? Because there's a stigma.
Fat back, bacon grease,
And
gravy
so
with everything.
We had a tendency back then, and even still now, to cook the life out of our food, the nutrients out of our food. but that's true. That's the truth. We kill it and kill it again. It'd be good. But that may not be the healthiest way, because we can cook out proper nutrients. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So there's quite a few healthier cooking methods you could use. Unfortunately, as yummy as frying foods can be, or microwaving veggies for long periods of time, like those are the things that we want to basically avoid. But I think I'm a big fan of roasting vegetables versus cooking them in a microwave, or completely zapping all the nutrients out of them. I think roasting really brings out great flavor to veggies, and flavors that people are never really experienced with vegetables. Like, they just taste so much fresher and richer versus bland and mushy when you microwave them or steam them too much. So I would recommend trying roasting. Oven baking things is great. Sauteing is wonderful. You just want to avoid anything that's making food products breaded or too crispy, or lots of gravy on them. Those are telltale signs that they're probably going to be very high in salt and high in fat. But that doesn't mean you can't occasionally do that.
No gravy, no fried, no chicken. What am I supposed to eat?
Roasted vegetables.
The chicken in the oven, roasted.
With some roasted vegetables.
That's it.
And get some of Tabitha Brown seasoning and go sit down somewhere.
Man, no Laurie seasoning salt?
No. That's why grandmama got high blood pressure. But and then let me ask you this, Ashley, because I know that some people have arguments about dairy. Like some people are like, do not incorporate dairy in your diet, because after a certain age we shouldn't be eating it anymore, and it can lead to inflammation, and inflammation is a whole different road of issues within the body. And then some people are like, no, it's a good way for you to get protein, there's calcium, it's needed. Where do you lie in that argument?
I am very much pro dairy. I love dairy. I can completely understand if someone has a lactose intolerance issue or a milk protein allergy. Those would be your two, biggest issues when it comes to dairy. Completely understand. You probably need to find alternatives and remove it from your diet, or, take lactate pills or something if you're lactose intolerant. But in general, I find good sources of dairy, meaning, whole milk Greek yogurt versus sugary, Yoplait or Chobani yogurts or things like that. they're very good protein sources. They're very good fat sources. They're great for your hormone, like to balance your hormones. They're great for fertility for those who are, trying to start a family.
Oh, wow.
Whole milk, whole milk dairy are great for
know that either.
Stop
Hey.
the dairy now. Stop.
I'm a big fan of it. And I also think, I delve a lot into the sports nutrition world too, with people who are trying to work out more and get fitter and things like that. And dairy sources are great for post-workout recovery. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard, but like chocolate milk is a really great post-workout recovery aid. It has the protein, fat, carbs in the right ratio with sodium and fluid to rehydrate you. So it's just I think it's a great simple tool, great simple food group to incorporate in moderation. We don't want to go crazy on the sugary ice creams and things like that, but
right. We have a question. So how would you plan for a person who has an issue with textures while dealing with food?
That is a really great question. And I wouldn't say that's something that I deal with often. But I will say that if you are a person who deals with textural issues, working with an OT, an occupational therapist, is who I would probably recommend most to consult with. Like from a dietary perspective, I can help with balancing out the foods that you are currently eating so that you're well nourished and you're getting enough nutrients and calories. But as far as like dealing with the textural issues, an OT is probably who I would refer you out to.
That's a good idea. Good idea. Now, when someone goes into the grocery store, they always say shop in certain areas. What are some tools or tips that you can share with people? So when they go into the grocery store, they stay on the outside of the aisle. So what are some things that they can look for? Maybe types of fruit that are better than others.
Great questions. So there's no perfect fruit. No fruit is better than another fruit. Bananas are not bad for you. Pineapples are not bad for you. I've heard it all. All fruit contains the same type of fruit sugar. The only difference is the concentration of the fructose found in that fruit. So, how some fruits are juicier than others. The water content versus the fructose content, the ratio is just going to be a little bit different in different fruits. But as far as where you want to shop the perimeter, like you said. Think about what is in the perimeter of the grocery store. You're finding all of your fresher items. So your fruit, your veggies, your deli, your fresher breads, things like that is where you're gonna want to edge towards, because you want about 80 to 90% of your cart to be filled with the outer perimeter items. If you think about what's found in the inner aisles, that's where all of your processed, packaged, bagged, boxed, frozen items are. So not to say you can't shop in the inner aisles at all, but we are only looking for about 10 to 20% of your cart to be coming from those foods.
Oh no.
Oh man, Miss Ashley.
Oh no.
I'm all through those aisles, baby.
Right? I'm like frozen vegetables, pickled vegetables.
That outside lane is a little expenzioso. I don't know.
Processed meat.
Yeah, in between them lanes is a little cheaper. So then that was going to be my next question. I'm joking, but I'm actually serious. So then let's say like now, your average family size, mom, dad, work and everything like that, money is tight. And so how do we assure this healthy style of living or adopt this healthy style of living for everyone? You know what I mean? Because things are more expensive when you do shop, organically on the outside of the aisles.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And food prices have, drastically gone up over the past couple years. There are some, quote, packaged or, more processed items that you could utilize in healthier ways. So just to provide a couple examples, like frozen fruits and vegetables are actually very healthy for you. Assuming that they're not adding any additional, creams or salts or sauces to those veggies. If they're just plain frozen fruits and veggies, they're frozen at their peak freshness. And that's wonderful for you. So you could buy those in bulk. You could buy them on sale. You can keep them in your freezer for longer. They're not going to go bad as quickly as fresh options. So that would be one way to save money. You can also use canned fruits and vegetables. You just want to make sure that you're buying low sodium for canned veggies or beans, and rinse them before you cook with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those could be a healthy option, or even canned fruits. Instead of buying in, heavy syrups, you can buy in its natural juices or water, and that could be, perfectly healthy for you too.
Cool.
So those are just a couple ways that you could probably cut some corners with your produce, because organic fruits and veggies are super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And speaking of organic, what are your thoughts on organic? Because I know, you hear a lot about, well, it only has to have a portion of organic for it to have a label on it. And so more people tend to go towards organic thinking that it may be better, which it can be, maybe. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question. So organic could definitely be a good thing, but it's also super expensive. So you got to kind of find that balance. And a lot of times the general recommendation is if you peel away what you're eating, like let's say a banana, for instance, you're taking the peel away where the pesticides would actually be on that peel, then you don't have to buy that product organically necessarily, because the part that you're eating is not the part that the pesticides are on. You know what I mean? There's also something called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, and it's something released yearly. So it's provided by an environmental group, and they release this every year based on the pesticide usage in different areas of the country, and on different types of produce. And they give you a generalization as far as the cleanest products to purchase conventionally, and the quote dirtiest products that have a lot of pesticide use and we would want to buy more organically. So you can kind of put your money where it matters when it comes to that.
That's interesting. I never heard of that, but definitely we'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
Now, a sweet potato. Like when people talk about sweet potatoes and substituting from your regular white or red potatoes, what are the nutritional values of the sweet potato versus the white or red potato?
Great question. All potatoes are going to have the same carbohydrate count per serving. So there's nothing low carb necessarily about a sweet potato. There's nothing magical about a sweet potato. It's great for you. It's healthy for you. But if you, let's say, have diabetes, or you're watching your blood sugars for whatever reason, a serving of a sweet potato is going to count just the same as a russet potato.
Y'all just want me eating bread. No bread. I can't even eat bread. Rice cakes. That's what I get. Rice cakes. I thought I was doing something with a little sweet potato. It's the same thing. Huh?
It's the same shit.
But there is.
I will say with the sweet potato, the biggest differences you're going to see are more vitamin A, which is why it has that orange color, and more fiber. So it's not, you're not wasting your calories and wasting your nutrition in any way, but the carbohydrates are going to be remarkably similar.
I got to stop talking to you now. I can't eat no cookies. I can't eat sweet potato.
I'm ruining everything.
I got to go home and reassess the
Roast
whole
your vegetables
kitchen.
and chicken and eat those. What are they called? Yassos. That's what you do.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
You get your own box.
Right.
I just get veggies. I can't even
And
afford the
go work
organic
out.
ones. I'm going to them cans.
Like
get those
frozen.
cans. Yeah. Beans. That's it. Miss Ashley, it's not in the budget, baby.
But you know what? That's a good point. I love beans. I love black beans. I love whatchamacallit? Great Northern beans. I also love garbanzo beans. Are those okay? Are we safe?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. All right. Just
I
making
don't
sure.
eat all those. I don't.
What?
Yeah, I eat black beans.
I like lentils too.
Yeah, I will eat a little bit of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't cook them though. I'm all about quick and fast.
Or a good red beans and rice. I won't even put meat
Oh.
in mine. I'll just make the red beans and then
We
Call
come
it
to
a day.
Kim house. So I have one thought, and I guess if you have other questions too, but what piece of advice would you offer someone who is trying to start their weight loss journey or healthier eating just in general, even if they're, at a comfortable weight, but what are some tips that you can offer someone to help them make healthier choices?
Yeah, I think a lot of what we talked about tonight would definitely be helpful for them. But the biggest thing is you have to get your mind right and your mind kind of wrapped around the journey that you're about to go on. And so I always recommend just to start small. I know that's probably not the advice most people want to hear when they're first starting their journey because they're so, excited to start and they want to see results really fast. But if you lose weight too fast, it's very likely you're going to regain that. I've personally seen that time and time again. So slow and steady is going to win your race here. The 1 to 2 pounds a week consistently over time is really where you're going to see the long-term success. So thinking of those small little goals that you could attain, week by week and month by month, and also think of just small dietary and exercise related changes you can make. Like you don't need to run a marathon by the end of the month, but could you walk around the block a couple times or, go for a longer walk with your dog or go for a hike on the weekends? Like what are just some simple things that you could, add into your lifestyle or change up in your lifestyle that's not going to completely overhaul it and stress you out, and then move forward from there. I think that would be the best piece of advice I could give.
And that's good advice.
Awesome. Yep.
It's a constant reminder because, girl, I'm trying to be Beyonce tomorrow. I ain't trying to hear all that.
And that goes to show, that just speaks to the culture too. Everybody want it fast. They want it quick.
Very fast.
And so when people come in for weight loss, I tell them, look, this is not that you lose 20 pounds in 10 days. That is not it. This is that slow and steady because that's really what you want. And I tell people you have to trust the process. If you follow the plan, do the things that you're supposed to do, generally it works out for people.
Yeah, agreed.
That is amazing. Well, how they can learn more about you because you have been a wealth of knowledge today, and we just really thank you for taking the time to come and hang with us.
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Well, I have a website. I have Instagram. I have Facebook. I have all the social media channels. But fueledandfit.us is where you can find me. And then Fueled and Fit LLC is my Instagram handle. So feel free to contact me if you have any questions or you want to speak further and have a consultation. I do offer 15-minute free discovery calls for potential clients. So I would love to speak with you.
Yep. And anybody that comes to me on the weight loss program, definitely we have a referral where you can go and be referred to Ashley.
Boom. Look at that. Women in business. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Goodness. Well, this was a lot of good information. Hopefully you guys learned something today. I know we did. Your sweet potatoes ain't doing shit.
Not a damn thing. I thought I was somebody. Brad said same shit. All right.
You just
All right.
pick.
Yeah. Just what color do you want to eat,
Right.
bruh?
But But I hope you guys learned something. And then make sure that you guys are following Embodi Hydration and Wellness. Make sure you're following Dr. Janze as well, and that you are tuning in for the next episode of Embody Balance, because once again, we are all about total body health and wellness here. It is a journey. So get your Avenger team together, get your nutritionist, your dietitian, your
therapist.
Your therapist. Definitely.
We'll be here on the 29th.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll have a therapist here as well.
Because we got things to talk about.
I can't eat sweet potatoes, brother. Damn. You said that's what I was supposed to go to. What now?
He'll be calling you, Ashley. He's gonna need a therapist too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. We will be back tomorrow. Obi will be in the building, so you will get your birthday song. And we will be also having our nightmare profiles. We heard you guys.
Dating profiles were hilarious.
There's so many. Oh, there's so many. And we will be doing that tomorrow as well. So make sure you guys keep it locked right here with TDS Radio.
See ya. Peace.
Bye, Ashley.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.